Final game of the year, and then it's on to the offseason. Sabres and Lightning, one last shot. We're going big and going home with a parlay, and we've got the Swordies coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in. Thanks for making Locked On Sabres your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. We've got the Sabres and the Lightning tonight. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on the show. The final game of the year before we get off to the off season. We'll hear some end of season press conferences, I'm sure. We'll hear locker room interviews as those guys, all the players, have their exit meetings with coaches, and then we'll meet with the media. So we've got a week of schedules that are supposed to be kept, which might even give us a little bit of an implication on whether or not they're going to keep Don Granato. What we will hear this week: Sabres players will speak on Wednesday and Thursday. We'll hear from Sabres management on Friday. So we have a couple of days until we start hearing from guys, at least not including post-game tonight after the Lightning game. We'll get to all that's coming up in tonight's game. I'm going big with the parlay. Let's swing for the fences this one last time. So that's coming up. We'll talk about if there's any tea leaves to pick up on Don Granato, and if this week we should even be tracking it, if it's possible, how likely it might be that Granato will survive this week. And then finally, on the last segment of today's show, our annual Swordies, our yearly awards. I've got 4 awards to give away: Most Improved Player, the GOT, get off this team, MDP, Most Disappointing Player, and then the MVP for the Most Valuable Player, all ahead here on today's show. If you want to check out our Locked On Sabres text line, be sure to go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres to sign up. If you're already a texter, shoot in some questions whenever you feel like it. And when I get through, once I come across it, I'll respond as soon as I see it. There are a lot of them, so sometimes it takes a little bit, but I'll get there for most of them. Like one today. I had one listener ask about Brandon Hagel yesterday, actually, about, is there a way to get Hagel back? Long lost prospect, 6th-round pick. Jason Botterill decided not to tender him an RFA deal. He goes off. Great player for Chicago. Tampa acquires him, and he's a great player for Tampa Bay. And I think the simple answer on Brandon Hagel is no, he's pretty much a Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they are very happy with him. He is not even into his long-term contract extension yet. 8 years, $6.5 million per year. And Tampa's about to lose Stamkos, maybe. So forward-wise, they need Brandon Hagel. And he's had 73 points this year. Like, he's a stud. He is going to be the one that got away. Very much like Wyatt Teller for the Bills. The Bills, like, afterthought prospect. Teller was a 5th-round pick for the Bills. They sent him away for basically nothing, and then the guy went on to become an all-pro guard. For the Sabres, you know, at the time, I remember Sabres Twitter thinking, like, hey, this dude's been good in the WHL. He deserves a contract. He had 102 points with the Red Deer Rebels. And the Sabres said, nah, we're good. No thanks. And then he goes on to become this level of player, almost a point per game player in the NHL. So no, that one's just going to be, that's going to be a regret for the entire eternity of his career. What could have been for the entirety of his career. Final game tonight, Sabres and Lightning. Listen, this is not going to be a game with a lot of stakes at all. Tampa is locked in to the first wildcard spot at 96 points. They are going to play the Boston Bruins almost undoubtedly. The Bruins are 1 point above Florida, but they do have a game in hand. So if Florida caught them, then it would be Tampa versus Florida. And if Boston won their last 2 games and the Rangers won, there's a chance that the Rangers could play the Lightning. But right now, the most likely opponent is Boston. So they can't move. Who they play is out of their control. I don't know. There's nothing yet on the lineup. I'll do one last check at the start of the show. There wasn't anything on the lineup. Let me double check that real quick. But Tampa, I bet, is going to be playing a lot of their bench guys. Although, I will say, as I just looked now, I missed this. Andrei Vasilevsky is going to start tonight for the Lightning. So they're going with their number one goaltender. I doubt he'll play the whole game, though. I don't get it. I don't know why he would play the whole game, but he's confirmed as their starter. The Sabres, meanwhile, will go with Eric Comrie in goal. Maybe a little bit of a, hey, thanks, man, for being a good soldier along the way, because Comrie has been practicing with the team for months and has not started for the Sabres in, I think it was January. The last start that Eric Comrie had was on March 7th. So we got one start on March 7th. And before that, February 15th. And before that, you got to go back to December 5th. Okay, so since December 6th, let's use that as a mark here. Since December 6th, he's played 2 games in the NHL. So tough season for him individually. They give him one last crack. This will be his final start for the Sabres, undoubtedly. I had a little bit of a stat of the day for you, and then a Sabres droughtology for you before we get to my parlay for tonight's game. Stat of the day, because it's on Eric Comrie. Even though I don't want to make it sound like I'm blaming Comrie for the season, because I'm not, and it's a very limited sample with the games he played, and there were a couple of games in there where he wasn't even the biggest problem. There's a New Jersey game early in the season where the Sabres had like 12 shots on goal. But games that the Sabres have played this year without Eric Comrie starting, a 91-point pace. And the current Eastern Conference playoff pace is 89. Now, what is that to say? In part, it's if I just took Comrie's games and split them between Luukkonen and Levi, you could have been in the playoffs. Listen, that's not that crazy to make that jump. I mean, there's a lot of context needed again. It's not as simple as that, but just kind of an interesting fact that in just Luukkonen and Levi games this year, the Sabres were a 91-point team. And the games Comrie played really dragged them down. There was quality of opponent stuff there too, and so on and so forth. Sabres droughtology of today. I was looking at the Amerks playoff race. They are 1 point back of the North Division lead with 3 games to go. They might win their division. And I was just on my mind was on the farm team and AHL. And I was trying to think of a Sabres droughtology for today. And one that came to my mind was, wait a minute. Were the Sabres even affiliated with the Amerks the last time they made the playoffs? Because if I remember right, Pagula bought the Sabres. And then one of the first things he did after that first half season was that they made the playoffs in was to buy the Rochester Americans and get rid of their current affiliate, which was the Portland Pirates, and scrap that agreement and hook back up with Rochester, which everybody wanted to do. Everybody always made sense to do. It was kind of weird that they ever didn't have that agreement. So I went back and looked at, wait a minute. Yeah. Here's your droughtology of the day. The Sabres have not made the playoffs since their AHL affiliate was the Portland Pirates. Remember them even? Maybe not everybody even that's listening right now would remember the Portland Pirates. If you're watching on my YouTube channel, I'll throw up some of the images of prospects of Portland past, including Jonas Enroth in the white. You got the white, black, and red Portland Pirate jersey with the little McDonald's circle and the slugs on the shoulder. You've got Marc-Andre Grignani on those teams. You've got Luke Adam. How about Mark Mancari? I mean, that's the AHL team the last time the Sabres made the postseason. So that's your Sabres droughtology of today. Just trying to put in perspective how long it's been. Got kick up the nostalgia, kick everybody into gear and be a little bit upset. Keep everyone on their toes when it comes to the Sabres and how long it's been. So, parlay of the day. All right, let's one last swing at the fence here. And when I say swing at the fence, I mean all the way out for the swing at the fence. FanDuel Sportsbook, these odds are courtesy of FanDuel. Tonight's game, the Sabres are an underdog, plus 146, Tampa minus 176. I'm guessing Vasilevsky's not going to play the whole game. I don't know why he would. So I think these odds might be a little representative of that. Hey, this is going to be a Vasilevsky game. Well, maybe not the whole thing. And Tampa, as I mentioned, they're not playing for anything. So I don't expect a very intense lightning in this matchup. So with that being said, the kickoff parlay with the Sabres on the puck line. I'm going to go the minus 172 odds, so favored to happen. Sabres plus a goal and a half. To lose by one or win the game at any point. I'm going Sabres on the puck line. At least keep the game close against a team that's not properly motivated. That should be doable. I'm going to go under 6.5 goals. I don't expect a lot of energy in this game. I see more of a methodical type of game style. So with that being said, I think the chances are going to be few and far between. Not a lot of shots in this game, under 6.5 goals. And then finally, this is where we get to swinging for the fences when it comes to some of the shots. I'm going to go with a guy. There is a Buffalo Sabre that is looking for double-digit goals tonight that has 4 goals in his last 5 games. I'm going with Jack Quinn to not score 1 goal, but to score 2 or more goals in this game. Jack Quinn to score 2 or more. He scored some skilled goals, too. He's had a lot of chances. He is coming off a game on Saturday where he had 7 shots on goal. Led the game. I think Quinn is playing great at the end of the season here, getting chances. He is getting opportunities in the top 6. And I think because he's had a lost season, I'm trying to look around who's hot late, who might be motivated to kind of go into the offseason on a good note. It might be a guy who had a lost season in general due to injury. And Jack Quinn wants to remind everybody that the player he could be. I'm going with Quinn to score 2 or more goals. You're asking just how unlikely that is? Well, you're go with the odds. Plus 17,388. We're going big. Come on, 10 to win 1,700 or 100 to win 17,000. You're putting $1 on it to win 178 is what you're getting for that 3-leg same game parlay. For tonight's game, 7 o'clock puck drop between the Sabres and the Lightning. When we come back, will Don Granato survive the week? We'll tackle that next here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the winning formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Be sure to check out Locked On's NFL Mock Draft live in 2 nights. April 17th, Wednesday at 7 p.m., streaming on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Find the ultimate 6-episode series on April 17th at 7 p.m. to hear who the local Locked On experts are picking for every NFL franchise, including the Buffalo Bills. Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special, April 17th, 7 p.m., YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Sabres have their finale tonight, and then player locker room cleanout day, I should say, Wednesday and Thursday. Is Don Granato going to survive the week? My hunch says that he is. I believe Don Granato is coming back next season. The only way, I don't think they would fire him just to fire him. I've seen Seth Appert talk out there, what he might be like as a coach, or I've heard Paul Hamilton say this, like if they were to fire Granato, the most likely replacement would be Seth Appert. They like Seth Appert. He's already on the payroll. He already is in the organization, knows the players. Appert's name comes up a lot. I don't see that happening. I don't believe they would go to Seth Appert. That would be firing Don Granato just to fire Don Granato. And that would really be scapegoating Don Granato, which, listen, you can defend that. You can say that's deserved. I don't think the Sabres want to do that. I don't think the Sabres believe that they believe that Granato is the reason that this season has gone the way it is. So that's how you get to Appert, is we're firing Granato, we're going to have a coaching search, and then we might end up at Seth Appert. That's how you end up at Appert. I think what's more likely is the owner has a name, or the GM, Adams, has a name in his head that he's worked with in the past or respects from somewhere else. And hey, we have an opportunity to get this guy. Let's go do it. And they have a name in mind already before they make a move on Granato. And Lindy's name comes up for that, right? Because Lindy, Pegula loves Lindy, and Kevin Adams has worked underneath Lindy as an assistant coach. So both men are familiar with him. He's available. I don't think Rod Brindamore is a realistic option. It sounds like he's going to re-up with Carolina. Maybe there's another name out there. Maybe there's a guy that gets fired at the end of the season here on another team, or maybe gets fired in the playoffs. Sheldon Keefe, if he loses for Toronto in round 1. That's not my favorite idea. I'm just saying that's a guy I could see getting fired, and maybe they like him. I don't know. That is more my speed for if they fired Granato, this is what they would do. They would move off him because they have someone in mind that they don't want to miss out on. Otherwise, I think Granato's their head coach. One thing that I don't know how much I want to read into it, but very well could be a sign of he's sticking around. The Sabres did announce today their schedule through the week. I've already mentioned the players talk Wednesday and Thursday starting at 10:30 a.m. The Sabres schedule says that on Friday, starting at 10 o'clock, Kevin Adams and Don Granato will be speaking. Now, that doesn't mean they can't change that. That doesn't mean they can't fire Granato. They're not going to hold them to the Friday schedule if they decide to move off him. But the fact that they would put him down for that makes me think he's going to get to Friday. Maybe there are meetings with the owner after that could be decided. I remember Tim Murray did end of season media days after a season ended, and this would have been the 2017 season. And Murray did media where there was no indication that he was going to be released of his duties. He actually was being asked about Bilesma being released of his duties. And Murray never sounded like he was going anywhere. And then a couple of days later, after he did his end of season press conference, Murray got fired. So that could happen with Granato too, where Friday shows up, he speaks for a while, and then next Monday or Tuesday something happens. Again, I don't think any of this is happening though. I don't know that. If I were a betting man, I would bet that Granato is going to be their head coach opening night for next season. We'll see if I'm right. I don't feel super strong about that, just because, again, I've talked about it. I could see them doing it with Lindy, and also the Diggs trade has me thinking everything is possible. So it's not a leap to think that Granato could be removed. I just don't think it's going to happen. So we'll see what we get. I'll see how he sounds too, right? Like when he talks after this Tampa game, or even before, but mostly after, are there going to be any signs from him that he's been told, or he knows, or feels secure that he's coming back? If he starts talking about next season or things they have to do in the summer, verbiage could be a little bit of a giveaway here too for the odds that Granato is going to be kept around. But we'll see what we get after Tampa and the rest of the way. When we come back, our yearly sorties, the winners of my MVP, most disappointing player, our Get Off the Team Award, and my most improved player, all back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. We are presented by Sleeper. We are almost done. One game left. The standings, it's not even worth looking at anymore. It's just not going to make you feel good. But what could make you feel good, remind you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Fans could also play daily fantasy, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, college football on Sleeper. Entries could be made in under a minute. Look around the league. McDavid, Kaprizov, Ovechkin, Crosby, McKinnon, McCarr, Draisaitl, anybody will record more or less than their sleeper projections for goals, assists, for goalies, saves. You have plus, minus, or more in a given game. To win a 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. Use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. You'll get up to a $100 match in your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. It's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Final segment here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Time to give away some awards. The Swordie's 2024 edition. Most improved player. New one. Get off the team award. Most disappointing player, and then the MVP. I'll start with the most improved player. And I got some ballots in here from our Locked On Sabres texters. They were the voters on this. And most improved player. We had votes for Ukko-Pekka, JJ Peterka. Got a couple of them for Zach Benson, which is interesting because improved what? I mean, that's over the course of the season. That could be the answer to that. But by far, the winning nominee here is Ukko-Pekka as the most improved player. Got to be. The NHL should have this award, by the way. It is an award in the NBA. And NFL kind of has it, right? Comeback Player of the Year, and guys that just get better can win it. Most improved player is an award they have in the NBA, though. I would love to see this award in the NHL. And if it was in the NHL, I think Luukkonen should absolutely be someone that league-wide is talked about for this, not just for the Sabres, but talk more about him on one of our final wrap-up shows after the season. I am floored by the season Luukkonen has had. I never saw it coming. There was no sign of this coming, right? He had not played well statistically any of the last 4 seasons at the AHL or NHL level, but none of that matters. He did it. He did it. He made the adjustments he needed to. He stayed healthy. He got stronger, and he went from a guy that was only playing on the Sabres because of circumstance, because they didn't have any other better goalies, to, oh no, this guy's just a legit number 1 goalie in the NHL. That's how good he was all year. He was arguably the most consistent goalie all season. His numbers are not Vezina level. His consistency numbers, though, are Vezina level. So, Luukkonen, absolutely the most improved player. I think Peterka is a worthy finalist here, but it's Luukkonen's award. It should be called the Ukko-Pekka Most Improved Player Award if the Sabres ever want to give it away for real. He's been incredible. I can't wait to talk more about him. He's going to be an interesting player. It's awesome, too, because we got to figure out what a contract's going to look like for him. And I got no clue. I mean, 7-year deal? I like the bridge idea more for 2 or 3 years for him, but I guess they could pay him long term. Again, that's a conversation we'll have after the year. That's what they speak tomorrow. All right, get off the team. The GOT Award. Victor Olofsson, gotta go, man. This is it. It's been long enough with him in a Buffalo Sabres uniform. It's been 5 years with him in a Sabre uniform. 6 years, even, if you want to go back. It was the 18-19 season that he made his debut. So, Olofsson, one of the most disappointing players of the year. Girgensons, by the way, was another finalist for this award from a lot of our texters. You had really everyone got a nod. Someone in Owen Power got one here, right? Like, you know, I didn't quite see a Dahlin one. Someone put a Poso. I thought that was funny, even though he's already off the team. Krebs was another one. But this is Olofsson's award because it's time. He should have been gone last offseason. That was a huge mistake. And I don't know, maybe they couldn't get anything for him. But they couldn't get anything. Not a 3rd-round pick, not a 4th-round pick, anything. Because, listen, it was a bad situation. Everyone knew it was the worst-kept secret in Buffalo that they even talked about. I think that Olofsson wanted a trade. He wanted a further opportunity somewhere else. The Sabres probably wanted to do it too. They just had a Jack Quinn injury, and I think they thought, and I thought too, that Olofsson could suffice. That, well, this guy scored 28 goals for us last year, and our sniper in our top 6 is gone, so let's keep this 28 goal scorer around, and we might need him. 7 goals in 50 games. It just never happened this year. And I don't anticipate it will happen again for him in the future. I think it's very likely he's done in the NHL. This is it. His final NHL game will be tonight, and that he'll go back to Sweden rather than sign some PTO or have to go to the AHL, or I don't know. I wouldn't be stunned if he didn't get another opportunity in the NHL because the season's gone so poorly. But I don't know if I'd want to bet that. I think someone might want to give him a look, and it depends what his motivation is, I guess, at that point. So Victor Olofsson, time to go, buddy. He'll end his career with 90 goals, 92 assists, 182 points in 313 games. Listen, as a 7th-round pick, you could do a lot worse than that. Obviously, it's like the most successful 7th-round pick in 20 years. So Olofsson, you got what you drafted. That is one of Tim Murray's only draft picks that hit outside the first round. And really quick, Olofsson should have been here earlier. He never learned anything. He never developed any other part of his game. He was kept in Rochester for a full season during the 10-game win streak year when he could have been up helping the Sabres scoring goals. And instead, they kept him down there for some development that never happened. He arrived in North America as a shoot-first, shoot-only player. All he could do was shoot. And he leaves the NHL as a guy who only could shoot. Can't stick handle. Doesn't very fast. Not physical. Not good defensively. He's got an elite shot. He walked into the NHL with that, and he's leaving the NHL with that, and really not much else. Most disappointing player, gotta be Dahlin Luukkonen. Other nominees, Paige Thompson, Jeff Skinner was a nominee for this. Owen Power was a nominee for this. Jack Quinn, I guess just because of the injuries, I guess I get that, although I wouldn't want to put that on him. Both of your biggest vote getters. Peyton Krebs also. Peyton Krebs got a bunch of them. But Cousins got the most. And I think that's fair. Cousins is who I would vote for and who I would have given this award to. He just didn't look right all year long. We'll do a deep dive on him because I got to find out what happened to him. One theory that I've heard a lot, I got it again on Twitter today and on our text line. Constantly, I'm being asked, do you think it was the fight at the beginning of the season where he fought Hathaway from the Flyers and got pummeled? And he missed the game. He wore a cage for a while. Is he shook from that? Is this Trent Edwards for the Bills when he got popped by Adrian Wilson of the Cardinals? He was a check down guy the rest of his career because he was afraid to get hit. Man, I hope not. Sports psychologist, something. Because I don't know that to be true. And I want to give Cousins enough credit to think that it's not. But if it's true at all that his season went the way it did because he got beat up at the beginning of the year, that's a problem. Someone's got to snap him out of it this offseason because they can't have him playing spooked in the future if that indeed were the case. I again want to think maybe it's not, but that's something they should find out this offseason. Like, hey, did that get to you? Because what else explains what just happened here this season? Cousins is a mystery novel that they're going to have to find out about this year. MVP of the year, pretty close between two guys, Dahlin and Luukkonen. Luukkonen already the most improved player, and he did come in second in this total voting as anyways. So a slight edge on MVP goes to Rasmus Dahlin. Dahlin is their most consistent player. He, on a night-to-night basis, like it's very hard to pick out. In fact, the fact that I can remember the specific games, like in Detroit a couple weeks ago when they could have got within 2 points, that Dahlin plays poorly in, I think shows you how often he plays well. That you can remember when he plays terrible, or at least I can. Dahlin is their best player almost every single night that he's out there. He controls the game. He controls the flow. He plays the most minutes, most miles skated in the NHL this season, according to NHL Edge stats. He's scored, and listen, the assist came down, right? His teammates weren't scoring as much. His assist came way down this year. How did he produce more offense? Well, he scored 20 goals. First Sabre defenseman to do it since Phil Housley, and the only Sabre defenseman other than Phil Housley to ever do it. Dahlin scored a bunch of goals this year. The shooting percentage did go up, but he's been a very, very consistent dynamite player on this team. and he's going to be the next captain. I'd be stunned if he wasn't. Dahlin is the MVP of the season, in my opinion. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Sabres and Lightning tonight, so stay tuned for that, and we'll see what we get, and we'll see if we get any news in the next couple of days. So stay tuned. We're going to kick into off-season mode on our next show, and that's where the fun begins on how they're going to get this thing around. Thanks for listening today to Locked On Sabres. Be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or on the Amazon Fire TV channels app 24/7, first of its kind. Check it out. Locked On Sports Today. We'll wrap up updates over a week. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Again, the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.